Welcome to ShadowStream. You've just stepped onto a place where the ocean never truly sleeps, and neither do the things that live beneath it. Tonight, we're taking a slow walk down the boardwalk, that stretch of lights and laughter that always hides a darker current just below the surface. Because when the crowds go home, and the ride stops spinning, the boardwalk keeps its secrets. Some are buried in the sand, some are waiting in the shadows beneath the pier, and some still reach out to those who dare to listen. These aren't ghost tales told for fun. These are true stories, from people who saw, heard, and felt things they can't explain. The kind that stay with you long after the tide goes out. Most people come here for a thrill, and forget to subscribe before the next chill hits. But you're still listening, so tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. I want to know who's still awake out there walking this boardwalk with me. You might want to leave a light on for this one. Here are tonight's encounters. The first time I saw him, he was standing alone under the broken pier light, spinning cotton candy in the freezing wind. It was early November, off-season. The rides were covered in tarps, the game booths locked with rusted chains. The air smelled like salt, wet wood, and that weird sickly sweetness that never quite leaves the boardwalk, even when the crowds do. I wasn't supposed to be there that night. I'd taken the bus down from my apartment because I couldn't sleep. My breakup had wrecked me, and I just wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere that didn't smell like his cologne or sound like the neighbors fighting. The ocean always helped me think, but when I stepped onto the boardwalk, the whole place felt wrong. The air was too still. No gulls, no waves slapping the pylons, just that faint hum of a generator and the lazy flicker of a dying light bulb. That's when I smelled it. Sugar. Freshly spun cotton candy. It was such an out-of-place smell in that cold, empty place that I followed it without even realizing what I was doing. Down near the old carousel, there he was, a man in a faded pink vendor apron, turning the handle of a machine that shouldn't have even had power. The lights above his stall were dim, but I could see him clearly. Tall, thin, maybe in his 40s. His face looked pale under the buzzing light. His mouth stretched too wide in a grin that didn't move when he blinked. He turned his head when he noticed me, like he'd already been expecting someone to show up. "You hungry?" he asked. His voice was soft, friendly, the kind of tone that makes you feel stupid for being scared. I hesitated. "You're open?" He chuckled, eyes crinkling but mouth still smiling. "Always open. You'd be surprised how many people crave something sweet when it's cold." The cotton candy machine whirred, the pink sugar forming ribbons around the paper cone. I couldn't stop staring at how slow and deliberate his hands moved. Too smooth, like he'd been doing it forever. When he handed it to me, I swear the sugar was still steaming. "First one's free," he said. I didn't take it right away. "Do you even have power?" "The whole pier's shut down." He just kept smiling. "Oh, there's always power here if you know where to look." Something about the way he said that made my stomach tighten. I finally took the cone, mostly to end the moment. The spun sugar was so soft it stuck to my fingers like cobwebs. It tasted strange, sweet at first, but then something else. Metallic, almost coppery, like blood in the back of my throat. I wiped my tongue on my sleeve. But he was gone. The machine was still spinning, but he wasn't behind the counter anymore. The light above the stall flickered once, then went out completely. All I could hear was the wind picking up again, and the soft hum of that machine still turning. I threw the candy away and left fast. For a few days, I tried to convince myself I'd imagined him. Maybe he was some seasonal worker cleaning up. Maybe I'd been half asleep. But the smell lingered in my coat, that weird burnt sugar scent that reminded me of something I couldn't place. By the third night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see that stretched smile and the way he never really blinked. So of course, like an idiot, I went back. It was even colder this time. The ocean sounded angry, the wind howling through the empty rides. I kept telling myself I just wanted to see if he was real. That was it. But the boardwalk was empty. Completely empty. The stall was dark, the machine covered in a tarp. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed, until I saw the footprints. They started at the stall and led toward the pier. Bare footprints and long pale ones, too big to be a kid's, too clean to belong to someone who'd walked across the dirty planks. I followed them halfway before they just stopped, No turn, no jump, no smear, like the person who made them just vanished. I don't remember running back to the main street, but I remember the sound behind me, the faint buzz of a light turning on where there shouldn't have been one. The next day I told myself I was done. I threw out the coat that smelled like sugar. But that night as I sat on my couch trying to watch TV, I heard it again. That same faint hum. It wasn't my fridge. It wasn't the heater. It was coming from outside. I went to the window. Across the street, under the flickering streetlight, was a food cart, pink and white, and a man standing beside it, turning a handle. The wind shifted and I smelled it again, and sweet burnt sugar. That night, I didn't sleep. I started seeing him everywhere after that. Not up close, never close. Just flashes. Once at the bus stop reflection behind me. Another time at the grocery store, near the freezer section. I saw that same faded pink apron disappear behind the shelves. I tried telling myself it was stress, or grief, or something my brain made up because it didn't know what else to focus on. But when I found a single pink sugar strand on my pillow one morning, perfectly spun, like a tiny thread of candy floss, I knew it wasn't in my head. I didn't even own sugar. That's when the dreams started. I'd see myself standing on the boardwalk again. The ocean completely still, the sky this weird flat gray. I'd walk toward the sound of the machine, hear that soft whirring and smell that same sweetness. Then he'd appear from behind the stall, his grin stretching wider each time. His teeth too small and too many. And he'd whisper, "You came back for more." I'd always wake up right after that, mouth dry, heart hammering. And every single time the smell of sugar would linger for just a few seconds before fading away. Last night was different. I woke up to the sound of spinning, slow, constant. Not a dream this time. I sat up in bed and listened. It was coming from outside my apartment window. I froze. My window faces the alley behind the building. Nobody should have been there. When I finally worked up the courage to pull the curtain back, there was nothing but fog and the faint glow of a streetlight. The spinning sound stopped. Then came the knock, soft, deliberate, not on the door, on the window. My stomach dropped. I live on the second floor. I didn't move. I just stared at the glass, too afraid to breathe. The knock came again, this time lower, like whoever was out there was dragging their hand down the glass. Then, in the condensation, I saw it. A smiley face drawn with a fingertip. 2 dots, a curve, and then a smudge of pink. I screamed and ran to the door, locking it, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I called the police, but by the time they showed up, there was nothing outside. No footprints. No cart. Just a faint sticky residue on the window frame, pink and sweet smelling. I didn't go to work today. I couldn't. I keep thinking about what he said. You'd be surprised how many people crave something sweet when it's cold. Like he knew I'd come back. Like I was one of them. And right now as I write this, I swear I can smell it again. Not strong and just faint in the back of my throat, that same burnt sugar. It's cold tonight. The kind of cold that makes your teeth ache. And somewhere outside, under the hum of the streetlights, I can hear it again. That slow, steady spinning sound. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days after that night. Every time I tried to step outside, I caught that faint sugary smell again, like it had soaked into my walls. I scrubbed the windows, the floor, even washed the curtains, but it clung to everything. By the 4th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know what was happening, so I went back to the boardwalk. It was late afternoon, gray and windless. The sea looked like a flat sheet of metal. Most of the shops were boarded up, their paint peeled and sun-bleached. I walked slowly, my breath fogging in front of me. The wood creaked under my shoes, every sound echoing too loud in the empty air. The cotton candy stall was still there, exactly where it had been the first time. But now it looked different, older somehow, like it hadn't been touched in years. The paint had peeled away to dull gray wood and the faded pink awning sagged. I hesitated, then ducked behind the counter. The machine was gone. All that was left was a round ring on the countertop, like something had sat there too long and burned into the surface. When I brushed my hand across it, it felt warm. "Hey," a voice barked behind me. I jumped. A man in a brown maintenance jacket stood at the end of the boardwalk, glaring. "This area's closed off," he said, walking toward me. "You can't be back here." "I'm sorry," I stammered. I thought this stall was still open." He frowned. "Open? Nobody's worked that stand in years. Power's been cut off down here since 2015. The number hit me like a punch. That's not possible. I was here last week. There was a man, he was selling cotton candy. The worker's face changed. Not disbelief exactly, more like recognition. You saw him? He asked quietly. I nodded. Tall guy. Wore an old pink apron. Kinda pale. Always smiling. He looked down at his boots for a second, then back at me. You should leave. Don't come back here after dark. Wait, who is he? I pressed, but the man just shook his head. There's some things that stick to this place. Things that should have washed away a long time ago. He started to walk off, but I caught the edge of his sleeve. Please, just tell me what you know. He sighed. You want to hear a story? My dad used to work maintenance here. Back in the 90s. Said there was a vendor. Ran that same stand. Friendly guy. Always there, rain or shine. Made the best cotton candy on the coast. People drove in from towns over just to get it. He paused. Then one summer, some kids went missing. 3 of them. All last seen near this boardwalk. Police searched for weeks, but they never found the bodies. My dad said when they finally looked inside that cotton candy stand, it reeked like sugar and rot. They shut him down, but they never found the vendor either. My mouth felt dry. You think that's who I saw? The man met my eyes. You didn't see him. You smelled him. That's how it starts. He turned and walked away before I could ask anything else. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. You smelled him. I lay in bed, lights off, listening to the city sounds outside. But beneath the hum of traffic, I could hear something faint and familiar. The slow whirring sound of that machine again. I pressed a pillow over my ears. It didn't help. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed I was back at the boardwalk again, except it wasn't empty this time. The rides were lit up, spinning. Laughter echoed all around me, but I couldn't see anyone's faces. Just shapes moving fast, and there he was, behind the counter, spinning sugar. His apron was darker now, wet around the edges. His grin wider. His voice carried over the noise. Still hungry? When I woke up, my tongue hurt. I went to the mirror and saw a pink streak across it, like I'd been sucking on something too long. I tasted sugar in my mouth, thick and chemical. I tried to throw myself back into normal life. Work, errands, meaningless distractions. But everything felt off. At the coffee shop, the barista smiled at me, and for a second, just 1 second, her teeth looked too small. At the bus stop, I saw a sticky pink handprint on the pole. It wasn't there the day before. One night, when I opened my fridge, every single thing inside smelled faintly of cotton candy. Even the water. I started searching online. Boardwalk vendor missing, cotton candy murders, seaside disappearances. Nothing. Just ghost stories on message boards, old Reddit threads. Then I found one post that made my stomach drop. You Boardwalk, Ben, 7 years ago. Anyone else smell cotton candy when it's cold out? My granddad used to tell me about a guy down by the pier. Said if you ever took his free sample, he'd follow you home. Used to think he was just messing with me. But sometimes when I walk by the beach at night, I swear I hear that machine spinning. There were no replies. The account was deleted. That night, I took the bus back to the coast again. I don't even know why I went. Maybe I thought I could prove to myself it was just a story. When I got off, the air was thick with fog. The boardwalk lights flickered weakly in the distance. I could smell him before I saw him. That same burnt sugar sweetness cutting through the cold air, and then I heard the whir. It came from the end of the pier this time, where the wood starts to creak under its own weight. I followed it, heart pounding, until I saw him again. Same apron, same grin. The cotton candy machine spun lazily beside him, pink strands floating like cobwebs in the wind. I told you, he said softly. You'd be back. My voice barely came out. What are you? He tilted his head, smile never fading. Just a man who loves his work. I took a step back. You're not real, he laughed, a quiet, broken sound. Real enough to feed you. The air around me grew thick, syrupy. I could taste sugar on my tongue again, even though I hadn't eaten anything. The spinning grew louder, faster. His hands moved in slow circles, pulling thread after thread of pink from the air itself. I don't want this, I said. He leaned closer across the counter, his breath warm and sweet. You already took the first bite, and then he was gone. The machine kept spinning faster and faster until it shook. I reached out and stupidly tried to stop it, and the second my hand touched the edge, it burned. I pulled back with a gasp. My skin smelled like caramelized sugar. When I looked down, a single thin strand of pink candy was wrapped around my wrist. Tight. I tore it off and ran. By the time I got home, my wrist was blistered and sticky. I scrubbed it raw under the sink, but the smell wouldn't leave. And then I saw what was underneath the skin, faint, almost invisible lines like sugar threads under the surface, pulsing. It's been 2 days now. I can still hear the spinning when everything's quiet. It's faint but constant. I stopped eating. Nothing tastes right anymore. Everything tastes like sugar. I tried sleeping with the window sealed shut, but I still wake up with that smell in the room. Last night there was a soft knock again. I didn't look this time. I just stayed under the covers listening to the slow tapping against the glass. When it stopped, I thought I was safe, until I felt the faint brush of something soft across my cheek. I turned on the light. Pink threads were hanging from the ceiling. This morning, I found a flyer shoved under my door. Winter Boardwalk Festival, 1 night only. Free cotton candy for returning guests. There's no date, no address, just those words printed in pink ink that smells faintly sweet. I called the Boardwalk office. The woman on the phone said there's no festival scheduled. The Boardwalk's been closed since last fall. I asked her about the vendor, the cotton candy man. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "We get a lot of calls about him this time of year. Best thing you can do is stay away from the coast." She hung up before I could respond. I can't stay away anymore. I dream about the pier every night now. The air thick with sugar, the machine spinning, his grin just out of reach. I think he's waiting. When I close my eyes, I see his hands, long fingers, sticky, stained pink to the knuckles. He's making something for me. I can feel it. My wrist burns again. The threads beneath my skin are moving, slow like they're growing. I keep thinking about what that maintenance man said. Some things stick to this place. Maybe he didn't mean the place. Maybe he meant us. I can smell him right now, stronger than ever. I know what that means. He's close. I can hear the machine spinning outside my door. It's so slow, like it's waiting for me to open it. I don't know how he found me this far from the boardwalk, but I can hear his voice through the wood. Still hungry? I didn't plan to go back, but there's a point where the not knowing hurts worse than the fear. By the third night of hearing that faint spinning sound outside my door, I stopped fighting it. I packed a flashlight, a cheap camera, and the flyer. Then I took the last bus to the coast. The driver didn't speak. When he dropped me off, he kept the engine running like he couldn't wait to leave. Fog pressed against the windows. Even the gulls were silent. The boardwalk looked dead, every bulb dark except one way down near the water. Pink light. It pulsed slow like a heartbeat. The smell hit before I reached it. Warm sugar and salt air, the exact scent that had haunted my apartment. Every step closer made my tongue tingle. At the end of the pier stood the booth. Fresh paint, bright stripes. The words, "Free cotton candy for returning guests." The counter gleamed as if it had just been cleaned. Behind it, the man waited. Same apron, same impossible smile. "You came back," he said softly. I stopped a few feet away. "What do you want from me?" He looked almost hurt. "You asked for sweetness. I just gave you a taste. I never asked for this. But you took it," he said. "That's the same thing." The machine beside him began to spin on its own, the hum deep and steady. Pink sugar threads rose into the air, floating upward like smoke. They caught the fog and glowed faintly, wrapping around the wooden posts, stretching toward me. I held up my camera and snapped a photo. The flash lit the pier, bright, white, sudden. For a fraction of a second, he wasn't standing there. The camera screen showed only the booth, empty. Yet the air in front of it was thick, rippling, as if heat rose from the wood. When the light faded, he was back, closer this time. "Stop doing that," he said, still smiling, but his voice had changed, lower, rougher. I took another photo. Flash, empty booth again, but I could smell sugar right behind me. I turned. He stood an inch away. His grin wasn't wide anymore, it was trembling, forced, stretched like something pulling from underneath the skin. I could see tiny grains of sugar at the corners of his mouth sparkling in the light. "You think you can just look away?" he whispered. "Everyone looks away." He reached out, fingers brushing the burn on my wrist. Instant warmth spread through my arm up to my shoulder, a slow crawling heat that felt alive. I yanked free. "Why me?" He tilted his head. "You were alone. People who are alone always taste better." The wind rose suddenly, slamming waves against the pier. The lights flickered. The hum of the machine grew louder. I backed away until the boards beneath my feet moaned. The pink threads in the air started moving again, toward me this time, curling like strands of smoke, delicate but deliberate. They wrapped around my arm, my waist, my throat. They didn't choke. They just held like they were waiting. I forced myself to breathe. "You're not real," he laughed quietly. "I'm as real as the sugar you swallowed." I pulled the flashlight from my pocket and shined it straight at his face. For a moment, he looked ordinary, tired eyes, skin pale from the cold. Then the beam hit his smile and the reflection flashed pink like glass. His teeth weren't teeth at all. They were crystallized, tiny shards of candy, translucent and sharp. He leaned forward and I saw something moving behind him. Shapes in the fog, faint outlines of people standing in the dark. Their mouths shimmered too, little glints of pink when the light caught them. All smiling, I stumbled backward. No, you're hungry," he finished. The pier groaned under a strong gust. My flashlight went out. Total dark except for that pulsing pink glow from the machine. I could hear him walking, slow, deliberate steps on the wood. Each one creaked closer. I ran. I don't remember the path clearly, just flashes of the railings, the slippery boards, the sound of my breath fogging the air. Behind me, the hum kept pace, steady, patient. When I reached the entrance of the boardwalk, the lights along the rides flickered on all at once. The carousel spun, empty horses rising and falling in silence. Game booth bulbs buzzed, throwing harsh color across the fog. The whole pier looked alive again, but there was no sound. No laughter, no music, just the spinning. I stopped running. My chest ached, my wrist burning like fire. Every booth I passed smelled of sugar. And then I saw them. Dozens of people scattered along the boardwalk, motionless, facing the stalls. Some held cones of cotton candy. Some just stood there, smiling that same impossible smile. Their faces were pale, their eyes blank. Sugar glittered across their lips. I whispered, "What did you do to them?" His voice came from everywhere. "I made them sweet." I bolted for the exit, but the crowd shifted. Their heads turned in unison, following me. The sound of the machine deepened until it was more vibration than hum. Pink fog rolled in, thick and cloying. I dropped the flashlight, tried to push through, but the figures didn't move. They just smiled as I brushed past, their hands cold and sticky against my arms. When I reached the edge of the pier, I looked back once. The booth glowed brighter, the man standing behind it, arms outstretched like he was welcoming me home. "Don't fight it," he called. "It's better when you let it in." For a moment, I almost stopped. The air was warm now, the scent intoxicating. It reminded me of summers before everything went wrong, of fairs and laughter and that feeling that the night would never end. I wanted that again. Then I felt the threads tightening around my wrist and the warmth turned to burning. I threw myself off the side of the pier. The shock of cold water ripped the breath from my lungs. Salt filled my mouth, sharp and clean, cutting through the sweetness. I kicked hard, eyes open just long enough to see the glow fading above me. When I surfaced, the boardwalk was dark again. No lights, no music, just the wind and the waves. I swam until the pier was a shadow, then dragged myself onto the sand. My clothes were soaked heavy. The air smelled only of salt. For the first time in weeks, no sugar. I lay there until morning. The police found me wandering the beach at dawn. I told them everything. They didn't believe me, of course, but they humored me, took a report, drove me past the boardwalk to show me it was locked and abandoned. The stalls were boarded up, dust thick on every surface. No sign of any booth, no machine, no footprints. They let me go after a few hours. Said I'd probably fallen asleep on the beach and dreamed the rest. Maybe they were right. Maybe. But when I got home, there was a paper cone sitting on my kitchen counter. Pink. Perfect. A small bite missing from the top. I didn't touch it. I didn't even breathe near it. I just backed away slowly and left the apartment. I moved 2 towns inland after that. New job, new phone number, different bus route. For a while it worked. No smells, no dreams, no spinning sound until last week. It started again, soft at first. That faint hum coming through the walls late at night. I tried to ignore it, but it's louder every day now. The neighbors don't hear it. No one ever does. Yesterday, a flyer appeared on my doorstep. Same pink paper, Spring Festival, free cotton candy for loyal guests. I tore it up and threw it away. But the pieces stuck to my fingers. Sticky, sweet, impossible to wash off. My wrist has started to ache again. When I hold it under the light, I can see the faint shimmer beneath the skin. Tiny threads glinting pink, pulsing with my heartbeat. I know what that means. I know he's not done, he's patient. He waits until you're lonely again. Until you crave something sweet. It's almost midnight now. The air through the open window smells faintly of the sea, even though I'm miles from it. And somewhere outside, below the hum of traffic, I can hear the slow, steady whir of a machine starting to spin. I don't look anymore. I just sit still, pretending I can't smell the sugar, pretending the knocking on the window isn't real, because I know what happens when you open it. The second you take that first bite, he never really leaves. I was already halfway down the boardwalk when I heard the music. It was faint, the kind of sound that makes you question if you're really hearing it or just imagining it. A slow, tinkling melody carried on the wind. The song was warped, like an old record playing too slow, but I recognized it instantly. The carousel tune. That was impossible. The old carousel at Seaside Point hadn't run in years. They fenced it off after the accident, the one that killed the 3 kids. I remembered the news stories, the grainy photos of the twisted ride, the parents sobbing on TV. The park shut down the same summer, but the sound was clear as day now, floating over the sand and through the cold air. I stopped walking. The beach was empty, just wind and gray water stretching out to nowhere. Every shop along the boardwalk was closed, windows covered, neon signs dead. I was alone. I should have been alone. And yet, there it was again, that carousel tune. I followed the sound. The farther I walked, the colder it got. The boards creaked beneath my sneakers, damp from the mist rolling in off the ocean. Every few feet I passed a bench or a trash can covered in gull droppings and rust. The smell of salt and old wood mixed with something else. Oil maybe, or metal that had been left out too long. When I reached the far end of the boardwalk, the fog thickened. I could barely see 10 feet ahead. The carousel shape emerged out of it like something rising from the sea. Round domed roof, chipped paint. Mirrors cracked down the middle. The gate that was supposed to block it off was lying flat on the ground. Chain still attached. I don't know why I stepped over it. Maybe I just wanted to prove the sound wasn't real, that my mind was playing tricks, but the moment I crossed that line, the air changed. The fog didn't move anymore, and it just hung there, heavy and still. The music grew louder. I could see the horses now, their colors faded, eyes glassy with grime. The poles that held them gleamed faintly, like they'd just been polished. One of them, a white horse with a cracked gold saddle, was moving. Barely. It was rocking back and forth, slow and steady, like it was breathing. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer and the wood creaked under my feet. I could hear the gears inside the carousel clicking faintly. That shouldn't have been possible. The whole ride was supposed to be disconnected from power. When I touched the edge of the platform, a jolt ran through my hand. Static maybe, but strong enough to sting. I pulled back fast. The carousel lights flickered on, one by one. Bulbs popped to life around the top canopy. Dull yellow at first, then brightening. The mirrors lit up next, throwing my reflection back at me in dozens of warped, bent shapes. The music box sound grew clearer now, cheerful and eerie all at once. I took a step back, heart pounding, and then I heard something else beneath the music. Whispering. I froze. It came from inside the carousel. Not one voice, but several, soft and overlapping. I couldn't make out the words, but I swear I heard my name in there somewhere. That's when the first horse turned its head. I didn't see it move exactly. More like I looked away for a second, and when I looked back, it was facing me. Its glass eyes reflected the carousel lights, and for one second I thought I saw pupils. The horse's mouth was slightly open, the paint chipped enough to see the wood underneath. I told myself I was imagining it. That old wood swells and shifts with temperature. That maybe the wind was pushing the platform slightly, but then another horse moved and another. Slowly, The carousel began to turn. The music didn't skip or fade like it should have. It built, swelling louder, faster, more desperate. I stumbled backward, tripping over the fallen gate. The carousel kept spinning. The lights strobed so fast it hurt to look at them. For a moment I saw shadows riding the horses. Not people, not quite. Just shapes, faded outlines that rose and fell with the rhythm of the ride. The whispers grew into laughter, high-pitched, childlike. That's when I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the parking lot near the road. My lungs burned. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Low battery warning. I pulled it out to use the flashlight, but the screen froze halfway on the lock screen. The music was still faint in the distance, somehow carrying through the fog. I called my friend Riley. He didn't answer at first, but when he finally picked up, I didn't even let him speak. "You're not gonna believe this, man. The carousel, it's on. It's running," he laughed, tired. "You're kidding, right? They tore the generator out years ago. I'm serious. It's spinning by itself. There's music, lights, everything." "Okay," he said. "If it's really working, send me a video." I turned around and raised my phone, but the carousel was dark again. Silent, completely still. The fog had swallowed it whole. When I looked at my phone later that night, I found something strange. No videos, no photos, but the audio app had recorded on its own. A 43-second clip labeled with the time I'd been there. I played it. At first just wind and static, then faintly music, warped slow, that same carousel melody, and underneath it, a voice, not mine, a child's, whispering something I couldn't quite make out. I played it again. Slower this time, it was clearer now. Don't let it stop, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the horses moving again. I told myself not to go back. I promised I wouldn't. But by morning, the sound of that song was stuck in my head. Everywhere I went, brushing my teeth, boiling water, walking to work, I could hear it under the noise of the city. The same slow tune, like a memory that wouldn't fade. By lunchtime, I couldn't stand it anymore. Riley finally called me back. "Hey, you good? You sounded freaked out last night." "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." Then I paused. "Hey, you remember those kids who died on the carousel?" He hesitated. "Yeah, why? Do you remember their names?" He thought for a second. "I think one was Emily. Another? Ben, maybe. Why?" I didn't answer right away. I was staring at the corner of my desk where my phone was lying, face down, because the lock screen wallpaper, which I hadn't changed in months and was different, it was a photo of a carousel horse. And scrawled across the bottom in faint white, letters were 3 names, Emily, Ben, and mine. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a sharp crack. The carousel song started playing again, faint, distant but definitely there, except this time, it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the phone, even though it was locked, even though the screen was cracked. I turned it face up, and for a split second I saw something reflected in the glass. A small hand pressed against the inside of the screen, leaving a smear of fog. Then the music cut out. The screen went black, and I finally realized something that made my stomach twist. The song had never started when I got to the boardwalk. It had followed me there. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the silence was worse than the music. I could still feel the vibration of it somewhere deep in my chest, like a tune stuck behind my ribs. Every time I blinked, I saw flickers of lights, carousel bulbs pulsing behind my eyelids. At around 3 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and went to get water. The apartment was dark, quiet. When I opened the fridge, the faint hum made me freeze. It wasn't the usual steady buzz of the compressor, and it was uneven, rhythmic, ding, 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 the same beat as the carousel song. My hand shook as I shut the door. The sound stopped instantly, but when I turned around, I saw something that nearly made me drop the glass. There was a faint circle on the floor, dust disturbed in a perfect ring, about the size of the carousel's base, right in the middle of my kitchen. I don't know what it means. I don't know why it's happening, but the music's back tonight, louder than ever. And just now, as I'm writing this, I swear I heard something that made my blood run cold. A soft mechanical click coming from the hallway, like gears starting to turn. The sound in the hallway didn't stop. At first it was only that slow, even click like a bicycle chain being turned by hand. Then it started to match the rhythm that had haunted me since the boardwalk, the carousel tune, measured and steady. I stood there, water glass trembling, listening to it move closer. When I finally stepped into the hall, the noise stopped. Only silence and the faint smell of metal, maybe oil. My apartment was small. There was nowhere to hide. I checked the bathroom, the closet, the front door, locked, empty. But when I looked back toward the kitchen, the circle of dust on the floor was gone. Someone, or something, had wiped it clean. The next morning, I called the property manager and told her my neighbor must be fixing something late at night. She said the unit next to mine was vacant. Vacant. For months. She asked if I'd been sleeping enough. I didn't answer. At work, I couldn't focus. Every sound seemed to echo that same mechanical rhythm. Printers, typing, the hum of the fluorescent lights. When I closed my eyes, the carousel horses flickered behind them like afterimages. By lunch, I knew I needed answers. I searched the local library's digital archive for Seaside Point carousel accident. There wasn't much, just a small article from 2009-3. Children were killed when the Seaside Point carousel malfunctioned and accelerated unexpectedly. The cause of the mechanical failure remains undetermined. Ride operator 32-year-old Mark Hensley was among the injured. He later disappeared before his scheduled hearing with park investigators. That was it. No follow-ups, no arrests. But something about the name Hensley sparked a memory I couldn't place. I left work early and drove back to the coast. It was barely evening, but the fog was already rolling in. The boardwalk looked worse in daylight. Sunlight showed every crack, every flake of paint peeling off the rides. A small convenience store sat across the street, lights humming. I went inside and found an old man behind the counter reading a newspaper. His name tag said Lou. "Hey," I said. "You've worked around here long?" 40 years. He didn't look up. Not much to do since they shut down the park. I hesitated. "Do you remember the carousel? The one that crashed?" His eyes flicked up at me, sharp and tired. "Why you asking?" "I thought I saw something the other night," I said. The lights came on. Music was playing. Lou folded his paper slowly. "You didn't see it? You heard it. That makes it better?" He sighed. "You think that ride broke because of bad wiring? It broke because Mark Hensley wouldn't stop it. Kids were screaming for him to cut the power. He just stood there smiling, said the song had to finish." I felt my stomach twist. "And the kids never got off." Lou's voice softened. "Cops said he vanished before they could question him. My brother swore he saw the carousel spinning again a week later. No one on it, just moving on its own. Folks say he's still out there keeping it turning." "Why?" Lou looked at me for a long time. "You ever lose someone and wish the moment never ended? Maybe he thought if he kept it moving, those kids weren't really gone." I left without buying anything. The wind had picked up, pushing cold air down the street. Somewhere behind me, I thought I heard a faint tinkling of music again, so quiet I wasn't sure if it was real. Back home, the apartment smelled faintly of salt. My phone sat on the counter where I'd left it, screen dark. When I pressed the button, it flickered on, and the wallpaper had changed again. Not the horse this time. It was a man's face, blurred, pale, eyes fixed on something beyond the camera. His mouth was open just enough to see a row of small square teeth. The background was too dark to make out details, but the shape behind him was unmistakable. The curved canopy of the carousel. I dropped the phone. The moment it hit the floor, the photo vanished. The screen was blank except for one new notification. Audio file saved. 01:12 a.m. I hadn't recorded anything. When I played it, there was only silence for 5 seconds. Then a whisper. "Don't let it stop." The same voice as before, only this time followed by something else. A breath, close to the microphone, and a faint metallic creak. I didn't sleep that night either. I sat in the kitchen with all the lights on, waiting for dawn. Around 3, I heard the faint mechanical rhythm again, this time from inside the wall. A slow, grinding rotation, then a new sound, faint laughter, high-pitched, echoing from the air vent above the stove. I climbed onto the counter and shined a flashlight inside. Just darkness and dust, but there was a smell, sharp and sweet like machine oil mixed with cotton candy. Something fluttered in the dark, a scrap of paper. I reached in with a pair of tongs and pulled it out. It was part of a carousel ticket. Torn, faded, on the back written in shaky pencil, "Ride again soon, Danny." My breath caught. No one called me Danny except my mother, not since I was a kid, and suddenly I remembered. The summer before the accident, my parents brought me here. I rode that carousel, over and over. The operator, he gave me extra turns because I kept dropping my tickets. He had a name badge mark. I sat on the counter for a long time staring at the ticket. My hands were shaking. The apartment seemed to hum softly around me. I turned on every light, every appliance, anything that made a normal sound, trying to drown out the rhythm building in the walls. But the more noise I made, the louder the carousel song got in my head, like it was fighting to be heard. By dawn, the lights flickered out one by one. My phone buzzed again, low battery flashing, though I'd charged it an hour earlier. The screen glowed just long enough to show a new message notification. No number listed. I stared at it until it disappeared. That afternoon, I went back to Lou's shop. He looked up as I walked in and frowned. "You shouldn't be here again." I put the torn ticket on the counter. "Did Mark Hensley have a son? A kid named Daniel?" Lou went still. "He did. Died when he was 8. Fell off the pier a year before the accident. They never found his body." I felt the floor tilt under me. "You sure about that?" "Pretty sure." Lou nodded slowly. "Why?" "Because my name is Daniel. And I remember him. He let me ride the carousel for free." Lou's face drained of color. He whispered, "Then you better pray he doesn't remember you." I left before he could say more. The fog was already creeping back in from the ocean, thicker than before. My car wouldn't start. I tried 3 times, but the engine only sputtered. From somewhere behind me, faint music drifted again, so soft it could have been the wind. The carousel tune. The fog around the boardwalk pulsed with pale light, rhythmic, slow, like the ride was turning again. I walked toward it. Every step felt heavier, as if the air itself wanted me to stop. When I reached the gate, it was standing upright again. The chain hung open, inviting. The ride inside was still silent. Then I saw it, the white horse with the gold saddle, the same one that had turned its head toward me the first night. Around its pole hung a strip of fabric. Pink, frayed, the exact color of the shirt I'd worn the summer I rode it last. Something inside me whispered that the ride wasn't trying to scare me. It was calling me back. I forced myself to step onto the platform. The boards groaned but held. The smell of oil and salt filled my nose. I walked to the center and touched the brass pole. It was warm, alive almost. The mirrors flickered to life one by one. In their warped reflections, I saw flashes of myself as a kid, laughing, spinning, arms thrown out to the air. And behind me, always the operator smiling, hand on the controls, Mark. His reflection looked exactly the same as I remembered. No older, no wear, just frozen in that endless grin. I turned to face the real space behind me. Empty. But when I looked back at the mirror, his hand was resting on my shoulder. The music started again, soft, slow, rising. The horses began to move. The platform turned once, twice, the air thick with static and salt. I tried to jump off, but my feet felt heavy, stuck. My fingers trembled as I grabbed the pole. In the mirror, the operator leaned close, his voice almost kind. "Don't let it stop, Danny. The song isn't finished yet." The carousel kept turning even after I stopped hearing the motor. It felt like the whole world had tilted, every sound swallowed by that slow, broken lullaby. I don't know how long I stood there, gripping the pole, eyes fixed on the mirrors. The lights blinked in and out of time with my heartbeat, too bright, too close. When the music finally faded, I realized the air had gone still again. The ride wasn't moving anymore. I let go of the pole and nearly fell. My legs were shaking. The mirrors around me were dark except for one right in front of me. In it, I saw myself, only younger, maybe 10 years old. My reflection's mouth moved before I could. "Don't leave yet." I turned around so fast I nearly slipped. The platform was empty, just horses and poles and the smell of dust and salt. But the reflection kept talking, lips forming words I couldn't hear. I backed away until I stepped off the platform. The instant my shoes touched the boardwalk, the mirror went black. I don't remember getting home that night. My next clear memory is sitting on my couch at dawn. The sky outside pale and empty. My phone lay beside me, screen cracked down the middle. I pressed the power button. Nothing. When I picked it up, a piece of grit stuck to the back. I brushed it off. Not grit. Sand. I hadn't been near the beach since last night. At least I didn't think I had. Then I noticed the faint sound under the silence. A tiny mechanical hum, steady and slow. Coming from the phone, though it was off. I shoved it into a drawer and slammed it shut. The hum stopped. For a while. By the next evening, I'd convinced myself the whole thing was exhaustion, stress, lack of sleep. That's what I told Riley when he finally answered. "You look terrible," he said. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I just need to see something," I told him. "Come with me tonight, please." He didn't want to, but I must have sounded desperate enough. We met at sunset and walked the empty boardwalk together. The fog was thin, and for the first time in days I thought maybe it was really over. The carousel stood where it always had, silent and gray. No lights, no music, just a shell. Riley kicked the fallen gate. "This thing's dead, man. You've been freaking yourself out over nothing." I almost believed him until I noticed the mirrors. They weren't reflecting us. They showed the ride lit up, spinning, children's shadows whirling past the edges. "Riley," I said quietly, "what do you see in the mirrors?" He frowned. "Just you, why?" The moment he said it, the reflection changed. The horses were gone. So was the light. All that remained was a single shape standing behind my reflection. The operator, hand on my shoulder again, smile too wide. I stumbled back. The carousel groaned once, a long, low sound like metal remembering how to move. Riley started toward me. "Hey, what's wrong?" Then he froze. A faint tune drifted through the air. Music box notes stretched and uneven. Riley turned toward the ride, eyes narrowing. "That's impossible." The lights flickered. 1, 2, 3, let's go, I said, grabbing his arm. Now, we ran. I didn't look back until we reached the street. When I finally did, the carousel was still dark, but the song was still playing. That night, Riley texted me, "Are you messing with me?" The song's in my head too, I didn't reply. I couldn't tell him that the tune wasn't only in his head. It was in the hum of my refrigerator, in the clicking of the wall clock, in the steady drip from the bathroom sink. The world was keeping tempo. I left my apartment around midnight and drove until I hit the coast again. The sky was blank, the ocean invisible. Only the faint outline of the boardwalk lamps guided me. Halfway down the pier, I saw footprints in the dew. Small ones, bare feet. They led straight to the carousel. The gate was upright again, but unchained. The horses looked cleaner now, fresh paint glinting under the lights that weren't supposed to work. And the mirrors. There were 3 of me now. One older, one younger, one standing perfectly still while the others breathed. I whispered, "What do you want?" The still one smiled. To finish the ride, the platform creaked as the machinery woke up. The mirrors flickered through moments, faces, storms, nights I didn't remember living. For a second I saw Riley there too, standing beside the ride, mouth open like he was screaming. But no sound came out. I turned, but no one was there, only the empty pier and the fog curling low across the sand. I should have left then. I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped forward. Each time the platform turned, the air felt heavier. The horses moved smoother, their eyes shining like glass marbles. In the mirrors, the children rode again, laughing, waving, looping endlessly through the same slow rotation. One of them looked straight at me. A little girl with light hair tied back in ribbons. I recognized her from the old newspaper photo. Emily. She mouthed something. "He doesn't stop for anyone." Then the lights went out. Everything went quiet. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd gone deaf. Then from somewhere close, a voice whispered right beside my ear, "Your turn, Danny." The next few moments blur. I remember running, stumbling down the boardwalk, not daring to look back. The fog was so thick I couldn't see where the boards ended. The ocean roared somewhere below, unseen. When I finally reached my car, the passenger door was open. Riley's hoodie was on the seat, damp with salt water. He hadn't been with me. Not really. But the keys were in the ignition, the engine idling and the radio humming the carousel tune in perfect pitch. I shut it off. The song didn't stop. I left town before sunrise, drove inland until the ocean smell faded. The boardwalk stayed behind me, but the rhythm didn't. Now every time I hear a song with that same cadence, any children's melody, any music box, I feel the pull again. Sometimes when traffic slows and headlights blur, I swear I see the carousel reflected in car windows turning just behind me. Riley never answered his phone again. His landlord said his place looked untouched except for one thing: a small circle of clean wood on the floor, like something heavy had rested there and then vanished. It's been 3 weeks. I don't sleep much. The song still finds its way into the quiet hours before dawn. Tonight it's louder than usual, clear enough that I can tell where it's coming from. Outside, I open the curtain just a little. The parking lot is empty except for one object sitting in the middle of the asphalt: a carousel horse. White gold saddle, eyes glinting in the dark. It rocks once in the wind. My phone lights up on the table behind me. New message. No number, the same phrase. The same breath between words, and behind it faintly a second message appears. Letters forming one at a time like someone is typing right now. Danny. The phone screen flickers and goes black, leaving only my reflection in the glass, smiling faintly, even though I'm not. Outside, the carousel song starts from the beginning, soft, slow, endless. I think I finally understand what Mark meant. Some rides aren't meant to stop. The first night I heard the whistle, the beach was supposed to be empty. No moon, no tourists, just the hiss of waves chewing at the shore and the dull buzz of the sodium lights along the boardwalk. I'd been on the job barely a week, covering off-season shifts nobody wanted, graveyard patrols watching over a beach no one swam in after September. The sand was cold, the water black, and the tower creaked every time the wind shifted. At 2 a.m. I heard it. 2 short blasts, 1 long. The lifeguard's signal for distress in the water. It came from the South Tower, Tower 5. The one that's been padlocked since the summer a guard drowned out there. My flashlight caught the waves glinting silver, nothing else. No swimmers, no figures, no movement. Still, the whistle sounded again, clearer this time, cutting through the wind like someone right behind me. I shouted, "Hello?" But the only answer was the surf. The handbook says to radio the harbor patrol if you hear distress signals after hours, but I didn't. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't spooked by stories. Maybe I just didn't want to sound crazy. So I started walking. The sand gave under my boots, wet and cold. I passed Tower 3, its ladder tied up with rope, then Tower 4 with the tarps flapping loose. Tower 5 stood farther down, half buried in dunes. Even in the dark, I could see the padlock glinting on its ladder rail. And yet, hanging from the rail, swinging gently in the breeze, was a whistle. It looked new. Chrome still shining, red lanyard coiled neatly. The last guard's whistle had been taken as evidence after the accident. I reached out. The metal was warm, like it had been held a moment ago. The tide hissed closer, creeping up the sand. I told myself to leave it, but some small, stupid part of me wanted proof. I lifted the whistle to my lips and gave a single short blow. Silence, then, faintly, from far out in the dark water, an echoing reply. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, my supervisor, Dana, noticed. "Rough shift?" she asked, sliding me a coffee. I hesitated. "Do we still have equipment out at Tower 5? She looked up from her clipboard. "No, why?" "Someone's been out there. I heard a signal, and there's a whistle hanging from the rail." Her smile faltered. "That tower's condemned. The city's supposed to tear it down next month." Then somebody broke in. Dana exhaled slowly. "Let it go, Will. That place has enough bad history." "What kind of history?" She didn't answer right away. "A guard went missing there 3 years ago. Tyler Reed. Tried to save a kid during a rip current, never came back. They never found either of them." That night I checked the tower again. The padlock was still there, but the whistle was gone. In its place hung a laminated tag, the kind we clip to our key rings when we clock in. It was faded, the print smudged, but I could still read the name. T. Reed. The wind came off the water hard enough to sting. My radio crackled in my pocket, a burst of static followed by a voice thin and far away. "Watch the current." I froze. "Who is this? Static again?" Then, "You're in my chair." I climbed the ladder before I could talk myself out of it. The wood groaned beneath me. The seat at the top still had a dent in the cushion, like someone had just gotten up. The horizon was empty, but the ocean looked wrong, flat where it should have rolled, almost glassy. A faint reflection shimmered on that surface. The tower, me sitting in it, and behind me another figure leaning over my shoulder. I turned. No one. When I looked back at the water, the reflection was gone. Then the whistle blew again, right next to my ear. I fell halfway down the ladder, landing hard in the sand. My flashlight spun away, beam jerking across the dunes. For a second it caught, something moving near the tide line, bare footprints, wet, leading up from the surf and ending at the base of the tower. I followed them until they disappeared in the loose sand. The air smelled faintly of salt and something sour, like metal left in the sun. My radio hissed again. A single word came through, clear and low. Relief. I looked back at Tower 5. For just a moment I could see a shape in the chair. Broad shoulders, head tilted down, one hand resting on the rail. Then the shape lifted an arm and gave a small wave. Exactly the way we do when our shift ends and the next guard takes over. I ran all the way back to the station. Dana was inside writing reports. I slammed the door open. "There's somebody out there." She blinked. "Will, slow down." I saw him, in the chair. I heard him on the radio. Dana's face went pale. She walked to the locker wall, opened the bottom compartment, and pulled out a sealed plastic bag. Inside was an old radio, salt corroded, antenna bent. A red sticker across the front read, "Evidence. Do not use." "This was Tyler's," she said quietly. "We recovered it a week after he disappeared. It's been dead for years." She looked at me hard. "If you're hearing him, you need to take a break." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But when I showered that night, I noticed a thin, tan line across my wrist like I'd been wearing something that wasn't there anymore. And when I lay down, half asleep, I heard waves again. A faint whistle in the distance, then a voice, close, calm, almost friendly. "Your shift starts soon." The next few nights blurred together. Sleep came in short pieces, full of water sounds that might have been dreams or real waves breaking against my window. Every morning my phone alarm went off at 6 a.m., even though I hadn't set it. The ringtone was the same pattern of whistle blasts I'd heard that first night. 2 short, 1 long. By the time I got back to work, I could barely look at Tower 5 without feeling a pressure behind my eyes, like staring into bright light. Dana kept trying to be gentle about it. "Take a few days, Will. You're shaking." "I'm fine. Fine people don't flinch every time the wind changes." She meant well, but part of me didn't want the time off. Every night I stayed home, the whistle seemed closer. At least on the beach, I could see the dark coming at me. I told her I'd do 1 more night patrol, then rest. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. Sunset bled orange across the water that evening. For the first time in weeks, a few teenagers wandered down near Tower 2, daring each other to dip their feet in. I kept an eye on them until the last one bolted when the tide rose. Then I was alone again. The wind carried something faint, music. Not the whistle this time, but a low hum, like someone whistling through their teeth while they worked. It drifted from the south end of the beach. Tower 5. I started walking before I could think about it. Each step sank deep, sand sucking at my boots. The hum turned into words, slow and almost conversational. "Keep watching. Don't look away." The sound seemed to come from the radio clipped to my hip, but the display was off. I turned the knob, static. When I let go, the voice came again, quieter. "You're doing fine." The tower looked different up close. The padlock was gone. The ladder clean, like the salt had been scrubbed off. I climbed halfway, just enough to see the seat. There was a towel draped over the backrest, sun-bleached red with a faint letter stitched in one corner. Something brushed the sand behind me. I turned fast, flashlight sweeping the shore. Footprints, fresh ones, leading down toward the water, perfectly straight as if someone had walked without pause into the surf. I followed them until they disappeared under the foam. The ocean looked perfectly calm, the surface shining like oil. A shape moved just beneath it, a blur, arm-like, rising and sinking again. Then the whistle, 2 short, 1 long. Closer than ever, I ran back to the tower. The radio hissed once and crackled alive. A voice, not static this time, but clear enough that I recognized it. Rip current. South End, go. Tyler Reed. I didn't know how I knew, but I did. Who is this? I shouted into the mic, no answer. Only the faint sound of rushing water, and a single drawn-out breath that might have been a sigh. For a moment I thought I saw someone out there again, knee-deep, waving. I charged into the surf, flashlight bouncing against my chest. The water was freezing. Each wave tugged harder, pulling sand from under my feet. Then the beam caught something pale just ahead. A face, a hand? I lunged forward and fell straight through empty water. No body, just cold. When I looked back at the shore, the tower light was on. The chair wasn't empty anymore. I stumbled out coughing. The figure in the tower watched me motionless, shoulders broad, head bent slightly as if studying the tide. The radio on my hip whispered again, almost kindly. Good job, rookie. Clock out. And the light in the tower blinked off. I didn't tell Donna, she would have pulled me off the roster for good. Instead, I spent the next day combing the storage shed behind the station, looking for any old logbooks. Most were water damaged, the ink running like rust, but one folder held photocopies of incident reports. The last entry with Tyler Reed's name read, OG, rescue attempt failed. Body not recovered. Replacement guard assigned to Tower 5 within 24 HRs per staffing protocol. No signature. No initials. Just those words. I flipped through the following week's schedule. My stomach dropped. The replacement guard's name was mine. Will Daniels. Typed neatly. Years before I ever applied. That night I didn't plan to go back, but my car wouldn't start again. The radio clock blinked 2 a.m. The same time as the first whistle. I walked. The beach was darker than I'd ever seen it. The boardwalk lights dead, even the horizon blacked out. Halfway there, the sand felt wrong beneath my feet, firmer like wet concrete. I shined the flashlight down footprints my size, heading ahead of me, matching my pace. When I stopped, they stopped. When I ran, they stretched farther, like something walking faster to stay just out of reach. By the time Tower 5 came into view, the wind had died completely. The ocean was flat as glass, and sitting in the chair above me, legs dangling, was me. The reflection in the metal of the ladder showed it clearly. Same hair, same jacket, even the scar on my knuckle. He was blowing the whistle, short and sharp, eyes scanning the dark horizon. I stepped back, shaking my head. No, I whispered. The other me looked down, smiled. Shift's not over. I turned and ran, but the sound of the whistle followed, bouncing between dunes and crashing waves, until I couldn't tell where it came from. When I finally stopped, gasping, I realized I'd circled back to the same spot. The tower was empty again. At the base of the ladder sat a folded towel and a clipboard. The sheet on it was blank except for a single handwritten line. New hire, Daniels, W clock in 3 a.m. I checked my watch. 2:59 a.m. The whistle blew once, soft, expectant. I didn't climb the ladder. I just stood there, salt stinging my eyes, trying to decide if stepping up would end it or start something worse. The radio crackled one last time that night. Tyler's voice, steady, almost relieved. Don't fight the current. Just watch. That's the job. Then silence. But when the first light touched the horizon, the tower shadow on the sand showed 2 figures instead of 1. I didn't mean to go back. After that night, I told myself I was finished, that I'd turn in my badge, let the tower rot with the rest of the season. But sleep wouldn't hold. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the sea breathing under the floor of my room, the faint chirp of a whistle hiding inside the sound of the waves. It wasn't calling me. It was reminding me. By the third night, the air itself smelled like salt and sunscreen. When I finally gave up and opened my door, the street outside looked washed clean, pavement dark as wet sand. My sneakers left prints. The beach was darker than I'd ever seen it, a gray that swallowed its own horizon. I kept thinking about the clipboard, the name typed neatly above mine. Replacement guard assigned. Within 24 hours, the ocean doesn't stop, so why would the watch? Tower 5 waited where it always did, a little closer to the water than before. The posts at its base were slick with seaweed now, as if the tide had claimed it and given it back. The padlock hung open. The ladder shone faintly in the starlight, each rung damp. Halfway up, I hesitated, listening. Nothing but wind and a thin electrical hum, like power lines over sand. Then a voice drifted down, quiet and almost bored. "You're late again." He was sitting in the chair facing the sea. Tyler Reed, or something that looked like him. The same red towel across his shoulders, hair bleached to straw, eyes pale with reflected light. He didn't turn when I reached the top. "I saw you," I said. "Out there?" "You tried to pull someone in." "Not tried," he answered. "Did. You think it ends after that?" His tone was calm, teacher-like. He pointed toward the water. Out beyond the first breaker, faint shapes moved under the surface, slow and rhythmic, as if the sea itself were breathing. Each time a shadow rolled, I caught the glint of a whistle. "They come every season," he said. "Someone always has to watch. When you stop watching, you go under. That's the rule." I wanted to tell him he was insane, that I'd call Dana, get help, but my radio clicked before I could speak. The same voice that had haunted me all week came through, older now, hoarse. "Tower 5 status." Tyler reached for the mic, pressed the button, and nodded at me to do the same. My hand moved on its own. "All clear," I said, though I didn't know who I was talking to. The radio hissed a moment, then, "Copy that. Relief shift scheduled." Tyler smiled without looking up. "See? Paperwork never stops." Lightning flickered far offshore, silent but bright enough to paint the surface of the water silver. In that flash, I saw them clearly. People standing waist-deep, motionless, facing the tower. Dozens, maybe more. The sea around their legs didn't move. "Who are they?" I whispered. "Those who stopped watching," he said. "Someone has to keep them where they are." The whistle hung from his hand. He spun it absently around one finger. "You lasted longer than most." "That's good." "I'm not—" I started, but the wind lifted the whistle's lanyard and brushed it against my wrist. The warmth of it made my stomach turn. He finally looked at me. "You remember the first time you heard the signal?" I nodded. "That wasn't me calling you. That was the tower looking for a replacement. It finds who it needs. Always has." The words didn't sound threatening. They sounded like policy, something inevitable. "You can still leave," he added. "But if you do, you'll hear the water forever. You'll never sleep, never feel dry. It'll call until you answer." Lightning again, closer now, thunder crawling along the clouds. Tyler stood and stepped down 2 rungs of the ladder. "Clock's almost up. Decision time." For a heartbeat, I thought of Dana, of daylight on the boardwalk, of normal voices. Then the radio crackled once more. "Reed, time to hand over." He looked at me, tired. "Guess that's you?" He pressed the whistle into my palm. The metal was warm again, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I tried to drop it, but my fingers wouldn't open. The sea hissed louder, like applause. Tyler exhaled. "Keep your eyes on the rip. Don't turn away, no matter what you see." Then he stepped backward off the ladder and vanished into the dark below. No splash, no sound. I sat there until dawn. The shapes in the surf stayed still, faces tipped upward as if waiting for orders. When the sun finally broke, they were gone, leaving only smooth sand and foam. Dana's truck pulled up just after 7. She shouted from below, "Will, what the hell are you doing up there?" I looked down. She was holding her phone, her face pale. "You weren't scheduled," she said. "You didn't clock out yesterday. The system still shows your shift running." I wanted to answer, to explain, but the whistle around my wrist glinted in the morning light, and the sound of waves drowned everything else. That was weeks ago. I'm writing this from the tower now, radio crackling beside me. The beach looks normal again. Families, umbrellas, kids screaming in the surf. They don't see the current cutting sideways just beneath, the pull that never stops. Every time someone wades too far, I feel it tighten around my chest. Sometimes I blow the whistle, sometimes I don't. The sea decides who hears. Dana still leaves coffee at the base of the ladder, even though she swears I resigned. Maybe she just likes pretending someone's still on duty. At night, when the boardwalk lights shut off, I can hear another whistle farther down shore. 2 short, 1 long. Another tower. Another shift. Maybe Tyler's there. Maybe someone new. Either way, the beach stays quiet, because someone always has to watch. The smell hit me first. Salt, bleach, and something underneath that didn't belong in a public restroom. Like wet metal. I'd been working the boardwalk's maintenance shift for 2 weeks when the night supervisor handed me the key ring and said, "Don't bother with the South End bathrooms. City's sealing them off next month." Then he added, half joking, "If you hear anyone in stall 9, just leave." That stuck with me the whole walk down the pier. The wind came in cold off the water, rattling the loose signs that read, "Restrooms closed after 10 p.m." But the door was still unlocked. Inside, every sound echoed like a memory of itself. Dripping pipes, the hum of the single flickering bulb, my boots squeaking on tile that hadn't been mopped in days. 9 stalls, metal partitions eaten by rust. Numbers stenciled on each door. When I reached number 9, the air felt different. Thicker, almost warm compared to the rest. The door hung half open, paint flaking around the edges. A faded out-of-order sign dangled from a broken chain. I pushed it lightly. It swung inward with a slow creak. Someone had carved words into the inner wall. "Don't answer them when they call." Below it, a smaller scrawl. "It's not the kid." I told myself it was just leftover graffiti. But then came the whispering. It wasn't a clear voice, more like breath moving through a straw somewhere under the floor. A rhythm to it, though, like someone counting softly. I crouched, shined my light beneath the toilet. Instead of tile, I saw darkness. An open space, rough edges of concrete, and below that a small round hole about the width of a drain pipe. Something wet glimmered inside. I leaned closer. The air that came out was cold enough to sting my face. And beneath the cold was that smell again, rust and ocean. Then faintly a voice rose through it. A child's voice. "Help me, please." My first thought was that someone had fallen through the maintenance crawl space. I backed out fast, heart hammering, grabbed the radio clip to my belt. "Dispatch, this is Mike. Maintenance on pier bathrooms. I think someone's trapped under the floor, static." Then nothing. The boardwalk signal was always weak at night, but this felt deliberate, like the channel had been switched. The whisper came again, louder now. "It's dark down here. Can you hear me?" I dropped to my knees. "Hey, don't move, I'm going to get help." "Don't leave," the voice said. "They get closer when it's quiet." The words froze me. "Who gets closer?" But there was only a soft laugh, bubbling up like water through sand. I backed out of the stall, nearly tripping on my mop bucket. My light flickered twice, then went out completely. The door to the restroom slammed. Not wind, something heavy, deliberate. I ran for it anyway, but when I hit the handle, it was locked from the outside. I rattled it until my palms hurt, shouting. My voice bounced back in short, flat echoes. Then I heard movement, metal scraping concrete, from stall 9. The door, which I'd left open, was closing. Slowly, dragging its bottom edge across the floor until it clicked shut. A child's shadow flickered under the gap. Small feet. Bare. "You shouldn't have talked," the voice said. The bulb over the sinks buzzed and steadied, washing the room in yellow. Every stall door was closed now. Numbers lined up like eyes. I could hear water running somewhere beneath them, a steady trickle into hollow space. Trying to think straight, I grabbed the handle of stall 9. Warm metal. It didn't move. The lock was engaged from inside. "Listen," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "If you're stuck, I'll get someone. Just tell me your name." No answer, only that faint drip. Faster now. Then something touched my shoe from underneath the partition, lightly, like fingers brushing the edge of my boot. I jumped back, slammed my shoulder into the opposite wall. The thing slid away with a scraping sound. I kept my flashlight aimed low, breathing through my teeth. There was movement again under the toilet, something shifting in the dark gap, glistening like wet rope. A whisper floated up, not a child this time. "Deeper, older, she called for you." "You answered." "That's enough," I bolted. The door still wouldn't open, so I hit it with my shoulder until the latch cracked. Cold night air burst in, carrying salt spray and relief. But just as I stepped out, I heard one last sound behind me, metal sliding, water rushing, and a sharp, short cry that cut off fast. When I turned back, stall 9's door was open again. The floor looked dry, no hole. Just cracked tile and rust stains shaped like a handprint. I told the night supervisor what happened. He laughed at first, then saw my face. "Man, that's the same story every new hire tells. Kid voice, hole in the floor, whatever. The plumbing runs under there, it echoes from the storm drains. But the door locked from outside," he shrugged. "Wind catches it. You probably panicked." He handed me the same key ring. "If it makes you feel better, go look in daylight." I did. Next morning, the restroom looked smaller somehow. The air didn't feel thick anymore, just damp and old. Stall 9 was open. The sign was gone. I knelt and looked under the toilet again. Solid concrete, no hole. But the carved words on the wall were still there. Don't answer them when they call, and beneath it, fresh scratches. Letters so shallow they barely caught the light. I tried. That should have been the end of it. But that night, as I closed up the food stands near the same end of the boardwalk, I heard the faint echo of water beneath the planks, steady, patient like the tide breathing under the floor. Then, mixed with it, a sound that didn't belong here at all. The distant creak of a restroom stall hinge, and a child's voice, low but clear, carrying up through the gaps in the boards. It's open again. The maintenance office smelled like coffee grounds and mildew. The others were finishing paperwork when I asked if anyone remembered a flood under the south restroom. Nobody looked up. Then Jorge, who'd worked the boardwalk for 15 years, said quietly, "They closed that drain after the kid went missing." "What kid?" I asked. He shrugged. "Tourist. Maybe 8 or 9. Disappeared after a storm. Police blamed the currents. They never found him. His mom swore she heard him calling from the bathrooms for weeks. The room went silent after that. Someone changed the subject. That story stayed in my head the rest of the night. When I clocked out, I didn't go home. I walked straight back to the pier. The wind was low and the water calm. The kind of quiet that makes every sound feel personal. The door to the south restroom stood ajar, even though I'd locked it earlier. Inside, the light was off. My flashlight beam cut through the dark, catching flecks of dust and salt in the air. I tried not to look at stall 9, but the door was half closed again, same as before. A single drop of water hung from the edge of the toilet bowl, trembling but never falling. I whispered, "Hello?" Something answered, faint and breathy. "You came back." The air turned cold. My breath fogged. The drop of water finally fell, and the sound it made, tiny, hollow, echoed like it landed somewhere much deeper than tile. I crouched and ran my light along the floor. The seam behind the toilet wasn't sealed anymore. There was a hairline crack just wide enough for air to move through. The smell of rusted metal rolled out. The voice came again. Closer. "They're almost done digging." My hand started to shake. "Who?" No answer, only a low scraping beneath the concrete like a shovel biting dirt. Then a rhythm, 3 short taps, 1 long, repeated twice. I stumbled out and radioed Dana, the supervisor from the lifeguard post. She answered on the second call. "Mike, you're supposed to be off duty. I need maintenance records for the old drainage tunnels under the pier." "You mean the storm system?" "Half of it's sealed." "Not all of it." A pause. "You found it, didn't you?" Her tone made me stop breathing. "You knew?" "I heard stories. The pipes used to run straight from the restrooms into the bay before the rebuild. The city filled them with concrete. Or said they did. The next morning I went down to the maintenance archives, a basement under the arcade that always smelled like wet cardboard. The old blueprints were there, rolled and brittle. One sheet showed the plumbing grid for the southern pier. A faint pencil line branched from the main drain, curling toward the water before stopping abruptly under a handwritten note. "Service tunnel. Closed 1987. But a second note, added later in red ink, read, "Access through restroom floor, stall number 9. That night the tide rose high enough to lick the bottom of the pier. Every plank moaned under the wind. I waited until the boardwalk was empty and went back, carrying a crowbar and a flashlight. Inside, the smell was worse than before, sour, heavy. The sound of dripping water came steady from the back. Stall 9 looked exactly the same, except the out-of-order sign was new, printed on clean paper. Someone had replaced it. I wedged the crowbar behind the toilet basin, pried. The tile cracked once, twice, then lifted enough to show a round metal cover the size of a manhole lid. It was old, stamped with the words "City Drainage Access." A ring of wet sand rimmed its edge. I hooked my fingers under and pulled. Air surged out, cold and sweet like low-tide water. The smell of iron and old rain. A tunnel opened below, no wider than my shoulders, slanting down into black. And far below, that same voice whispered, "We saved you a place." My flashlight beam disappeared after 10 feet. I hesitated only a second, then slid in feet first, one hand on the rim. The metal rungs inside were slick with algae. Each breath echoed. At the bottom, the tunnel leveled out. Water lapped softly against my boots. The walls were concrete but cracked, streaked with salt. Faint graffiti stretched along one side. Dates, initials, and the words "don't answer them" scratched over and over in different handwriting. Then the whispering began again. Dozens of voices, now layered and distant, all saying the same thing at slightly different speeds. "Help me. Please. Don't leave me." I swung the light toward the sound and froze. At the far end, a faint glow shimmered, blue-white like reflection on moving water. Shadows drifted across it, small, uneven, too many to count. Something splashed behind me. I spun the beam. The ladder was gone. The opening above had sealed itself with wet concrete, smooth and new. The air hummed in my ears. From the darkness ahead, one voice separated from the rest. Calm, patient, almost kind. "You're the one who listens." I tried to speak, but my throat wouldn't work. The light flickered, dimmed, then steadied again on the wall. New words had appeared there, written in dripping black letters that hadn't been there seconds ago. "When the water stops, follow the air." The dripping had stopped, completely. Even my heartbeat felt muffled. I realized the water around my boots was receding, pulling toward the glow at the far end of the tunnel like a tide reversing underground. I followed, because staying still felt worse. The glow grew brighter until I saw the opening, a circular grate looking out onto the ocean beneath the pier. Waves hit the bars and sprayed fine mist through. The water outside looked normal, but the sound was wrong. It pulsed like breathing. Between the bars, just under the surface, something pale floated up and pressed against the metal. A small hand, then a face, eyes open, mouth moving soundlessly. A boy. His skin shimmered like film, edges blurring into the water. He whispered, and this time I heard him clearly. "They keep digging. They'll find you." A low rumble started somewhere behind me, like shifting stone. The water began to rise again. I turned, shining the light down the tunnel, but it caught only moving shapes sliding across the walls. Too long, too thin to be human. The air filled with the sound of those shovels again. Scrape, scrape, pause. The boy's face pressed harder against the grate. "Go," he mouthed. I looked up. The crack where the ladder had been was opening again. Tiny flakes of concrete falling like dust. I didn't think. I ran, boots slapping through water. Voices chasing me in overlapping whispers that built to one word. "Stay." I jumped, grabbed the lowest rung, and pulled myself up as the tunnel below filled with black water. When I crawled out into the restroom, the floor was dry. The metal cover was sealed again, perfectly flush. Only my footprints and the crowbar proved it had ever moved. I sat against the wall until dawn. No voices, no dripping. Just the faint vibration under the tile, like something breathing slow and steady below. I tried to quit the next day. The supervisor signed the form, smiled, and said, "Good. That place eats it, people." But that night, as I packed my gear, my phone vibrated with a new voicemail. The number was my own work line from the restroom's maintenance phone. When I played it, all I heard was water running and a whisper. "We're almost through." I didn't sleep after that voicemail. Every time I shut my eyes, I felt the air move under the floorboards of my apartment, as if the tunnels had followed me home. By dawn, I decided to go back one last time, not for answers, just to see the place in daylight and convince myself it was ordinary. The morning crowd was already spilling onto the boardwalk when I reached the south restrooms. Kids with ice cream, gulls screaming overhead, the sound of music from the arcade, normal life washing over the memory of what had happened there. Except the door was gone. Literally gone. Boards nailed over the frame, condemned by city order stenciled in red. Someone had worked fast. I stood there staring until a woman in a Park Service jacket stopped beside me. "You with maintenance?" she asked. "Was," I said. "They told me this place was being sealed." She nodded. "Water damage. We'll pour concrete tonight. No one goes in anymore." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Smells worse every day, doesn't it?" I just nodded. The air around the door did smell wrong. Metallic, sweet, like the breath from that hole. I should have walked away. Instead, after dark, I came back with a hammer and a flashlight. The boards came off easily. The nails were still shiny, inside looked untouched. The single bulb over the sinks burned steady. The tile gleamed wet, though no water ran, and stall 9 stood open, waiting. Someone had cleaned it. The graffiti was scrubbed away. Only one new line had been scrawled across the inner door in marker. "You hurt us once." I said out loud, "I'm not doing this again." The echo came back softer. "Doing this again." Again. Then the light flickered and I heard breathing that wasn't mine. It came from the drain. A long exhale, then the slow pull of air back through a throat that wasn't there. The metal cover beneath the toilet shuddered once, then stilled. My phone vibrated. No number. When I answered, water hissed through the speaker, steady, rising, and under it a voice I recognized. "We can't leave until someone takes our place." The call ended. I looked down. Hairline cracks were spreading across the tile, tracing circles outward from the toilet base like veins in glass. The smell of rust and tide poured out. Something beneath the floor tapped 3 short beats, one long, the same rhythm I'd heard before. Then again, louder. The tile began to lift, each beat pushing a small puff of dust into the air. I backed against the wall, flashlight shaking in my hand. "You're not real," I whispered. A child's voice answered from under the floor. "You made us real." The toilet shifted. A wet hand, small and gray, slid up from the crack and gripped the edge. Then another. They didn't pull. They waited. Behind them, eyes opened. Too many, floating in the dark like bubbles rising from deep water. Faces pressed upward, mouths moving in silent words that became a single whispering rush. "Breathe for us." I stumbled for the door, but it had already swung shut. The handle was slick like it had been greased. When I yanked, my palm left a red smear that wasn't blood but something thicker, like clay. The breathing filled the room now. Hundreds of slow inhales that rose and fell together until the walls trembled. I screamed, just a raw noise, and the sound broke something. The floor split wide and the tunnel yawned open, black water glistening inside. For 1 second I saw the boy again, the same one from the grate, looking up at me with calm eyes. "It's your turn," he said. The air rushed out of the room as if the sea itself were inhaling. My flashlight died. I remember the feeling of falling, the cold closing over me, and then nothing but pressure and the faint rhythmic scrape of shovels somewhere below. I woke on sand. Morning light burned my eyes. The beach was empty except for gulls picking at seaweed. My clothes were dry but smelled of iron and salt. When I looked toward the boardwalk, the south restrooms were sealed again. Fresh concrete poured smooth across the doorframe. No one believed me, of course. When I told the city inspector, he said the tunnels had been filled decades ago and offered to show me the permits. The dates matched, signatures clean. "You probably fell asleep in the maintenance shed," he said. But the footprints behind me in the sand told a different story. Small, bare prints leading from the waterline straight to where I'd woken up, and stopping there. That night I couldn't stop hearing the rhythm. 3 short, 1 long. From the pipes in my apartment, from the hum of the fridge, even from my own heartbeat when I lay still enough. I tried music. I tried sleeping pills. Nothing worked. Then near midnight my phone lit up again, same blank number. I didn't answer. It rang twice more, then stopped. A text appeared. "The tide is low. We're waiting." I threw the phone across the room. When I picked it up, the screen was cracked, but the message had changed. "Breathe for us." The next morning, I quit the job for good and moved inland. 2 towns over, miles from the sea. New apartment, new number. But water still whispers in the pipes. When it's quiet enough, I hear the drag of something crawling through them. Slow, patient, searching. Last week, the landlord replaced the bathroom sink trap. He said the old pipe had filled with sand, as if the ocean were trying to come through. He laughed when he said it. I didn't. Because that night, as I brushed my teeth, the mirror fogged over though the water was cold. And in the condensation, a message traced itself backward, letter by letter, as if written from inside the glass. We found another tunnel. Sometimes I still dream of the boardwalk. Always the same. The sound of gulls, the creak of the pier, the smell of cotton candy and salt. And underneath it all, a heartbeat that isn't mine, keeping time with the sea. When I wake, the sound fades, but the rhythm stays. 3 short, 1 long. It's not just in the pipes anymore. It's inside me. Each breath I take feels borrowed, like the air still belongs to them. If you ever visit the pier and see the boarded restroom at the south end, don't go near it. Don't listen if someone calls from inside, and if you hear the pattern, 3 short taps, 1 long.